welcome to Grandma's How To's again. I got a couple quilts back from the quilt lady that machine quilts them for me, and I wanted to show you how pretty they are and how to put the border on quick. So this is the one I showed from before. She does a beautiful job, and the back is just as pretty as the front. She kind of made it look like pansies. Now I'm going to put a border on, and when she's finished, she has it so nice and trimmed up. But here's my border, and I cut it about 2 inches. I usually stick with a dark color because it always gets dirty around the edge otherwise. You just put it right on the edge here, and I put it on the edge of my fabric because this isn't always even. And I sew this all the way around. Then I turn it this way. And now I'm going to show you on the other quilt that I finished how to finish it by hand. But I like the sewn edge on the front. You don't always have to do it that way, but that's how I do it. And then of course I made the pillowcases, and so I'm going to finish that one. Now we'll go over here, and here's another quilt, very easy quilt. It turned out really pretty, and it's kind of modern, more modern. I'm going to hold it up so you can see. It's just a bunch of different colors. And the good thing about this is if you put a border in the middle, going down the middle, all fabric is about 45 inches wide. And so I just use half yards. If I want, I maybe buy a half a yard of this, half a yard of this, and you can make, and you just cut them at random widths. No pattern at all. And then you just have to make sure you always have 2. Now the quilt lady, she does it by machine, and she does this pattern for this particular quilt, and she really does pick out nice patterns for the different things. Now see, I went with the darker border around here, and I kind of like to round the edges because that way I just take a plate or something and kind of round it. That way you don't have to miter your corners or anything. And here's the last bit. Let's see, where did I end? Oh, here. Okay. Now I'm just about done with this quilt. And I just take and turn it over like I was showing. I sewed it on, turn it over, pin it, and then I go around with my needle and thread. And I just kind of do that. You can also go and do it with on the machine also. So that way it never ever comes out. But you can take 2-3 stitches and then pull. Okay, and then, so that's how you kind of finish off this quilt. But this is a very simple quilt for a beginner, and it's very pretty. You can just pick random colors that you have. And this color was more expensive, so I just bought a little less of that. This was cheaper, so it was $1 a yard at Walmart. So then I bought a lot of that because I made pillowcases out of it too. Now here is, speaking of pillows, I made matching pillows to go with. Now the back, because this fabric was the cheapest, I thought I'll use that for the back. The lady I'm making this for likes buttons, but I didn't really feel like making buttonholes, so I just put snaps on, and then I sewed the button over the top. This is very simple. All I did was the same thing, sewed a few stripes together, and then take this fabric and overlap it, like that. And that's a good way to use up all your old pillows that you are kind of tired of. So, if you've never, here's another way to make a pillow. Here's for the other quilt, the purple one. I'm just going to take this shirt I get at the thrift store or maybe a garage sale, and cut it down here and sew it. And then I just cut this off, and then I end up, this is where I stick my pillow in. And I already have the buttons on. So you don't even have to try hard. You don't even really have to know how to sew all those pieces together. Now to put the snaps on, I have a cutting board under here because it's kind of hard. I'm going to use these buttons because I find buttons at the thrift store and the garage sales also. And it doesn't matter because that's just a colorful quilt. Now, if I had to do it over again, I would have overlapped this more because then I have a sturdier fabric to do these snaps on. But instead, I'm going to reinforce it. Now I kind of marked it out where it fits together. And so what I'm going to do is stick this fabric under here. So I have something to put these snaps on with. You can buy them in packages anywhere. Walmart, any sewing thing. These little pokey things have to come up through here. Then there's a little tool that comes with it. And it just pushes those little prongs out. And I have something sturdy behind it. Okay, now it doesn't matter if you put the top part on or the bottom. And I want to get that off of the other one or I'll poke a hole through it. So now I'm going to stick this onto those little prongs. And I'm going to put this tool on there. See, if I would just hit that, then I would flatten it and it wouldn't fit into the other part of the thing. Give it a couple hits, and that's how you get them on there. Now I can trim that up later, but it gives me something sturdier. So then all I do is the same thing on the other side, and then I can snap that together. And this side doesn't have that. Okay, so that's how I do that. Now, one quick thing about a little valance, I think, like if you want to make a kitchen curtain, here's one that's already been made, but it's much too long for a kitchen, small little kitchen window. And just the rule of thumb is to at least double your width. So if your window's 30 inches wide, make it 60. And so here happens to be a piece of fabric left from that other quilt. This would make a nice kitchen valance because it's just about the right width. So I'd say if it ends up about 12 inches, that's enough for a small kitchen window. That would be about that big. So all I would do is cut this in half because that would be just about the perfect one. That's about 14. Let's see. Yep, about 14. And so then I would take and have that cut in half. And just as this one is, if your curtain rod is about a normal size curtain rod, that's about how wide, maybe an inch and a half. And so I just turn this over and iron everything so it stays nice and flat. I would make sure that you have a little bit of ruffle on top. Doesn't matter how wide or how, if you want the ruffle wider, that's fine. Just take and sew it like this on your machine. Iron it first so it stays flat, and then just eye up a spot on your machine, make the top part and then the little rod holder, and do that twice. Sew two of these together so you have at least double the width, and so you'd have at least say 50 or whatever for a small window. Okay, that is that. Okay, one more thing. I was going to show you this at one time. It's an old toolbox that I found, and I degreased it. It was so dirty, and it was so cool that I want to keep it open someday just so I can put cool things in there. And so I really got it clean, but the top was never very nice. So I took a piece of plywood, and I took the same fabric I made my curtains out of, and I stapled it with a piece of batting in here. And then I stapled it onto here, and then I screwed it in from behind. And so now I have a nice little table or coffee table. Now I just varnished it because it was already old, and it's a pretty color that way. And someday I'm going to find a real old handle to put on here. But if you want to have a piece of pine wood, white pine or whatever, anything that you want to make it look old, you can take a piece of steel wool and you cut it up in just a piece of it, maybe this much, and you cut it up in pieces into a canning jar, maybe a pint jar, and you can put maybe a half a cup of coffee grounds, used coffee grounds, in with it, and fill it up with white vinegar and let it sit for an hour, and then stain that board with that solution, and the chemical reaction in there with the coffee grounds and the vinegar and the steel wool makes it gray and very beautiful looking. Real old, and it's a nice color for it to make things look old. Now we'll just show you a quick curtain. I made these curtains. You don't have to be fancy. It's just a nice big curtain, and I got the fabric on clearance for like $5 a yard. I always go to the clearance first, wherever I go, like this was Hancock Fabrics or whatever. Okay, so to close, I just have to show you my roses. I was telling you about knockout roses. You don't have to trim them, they don't have disease, and I'll show you a quick picture of them. And then, that's about it for today. They are just so beautiful. And the rain, it's been raining a lot here, so they're kind of droopy, but I'm telling you, they just keep reblooming all the time. Okay, well, I guess that's about it for today, and next time I think of something else, I'll see you again. Goodbye.